Hello everyone, Keza here, and welcome to this getting started video for Ultima Online Renaissance. This is Ossytank style, so mainly you're going to be going through the process of getting started in this game if you're going to go for the Ossytank build. Now if you're wondering what in the world is an Ossytank build, you've never heard of it, never seen it, it is using a Forest Ostard, which is an in-game mount, to do your tanking for you. And the big advantage of that is that you can heal the Ostard much faster than you can heal yourself, and they have more hit points than you do, so they're much more durable. Before I go over the build, let's make sure you know where to get the game. It is ulrenaissance.com. You will find a Getting Started tab there, as well as a number of other great links, including a link to the community, which has the forums and the IRC chat room. The forums has a lot of great guides and information about the game. The IRC chat room you can connect to if you have any quick questions about the game. Once you're in-game, arrange your UI to something that works for you and open up your skill menu. There are a lot of things in here. I always separate the skills I'm going to be using into their own tab. You don't have to do this. You'll see the skills I'm going to be using for this character to start with are Veterinary and Magery. I'll explain why I took the Magery later, but mainly you need 50 in Veterinary for sure. Starting out in Akla, you do have the option to train most skills in the game. To do this, simply find a NPC with the desired skills you want to find out what skills they can teach. Go up and type the NPC's name, teach, and they will give you a list of skills. Then type their name, teach, and the skill you want. They will give you a certain gold amount. Drop that gold amount onto them, and the skill will be taught. Healing is a skill you're going to want on your Ossytank character, especially if this is your first character. You're not going to have a lot of money to spend on reagents to use Magery to heal yourself. Another skill you're going to want to take early on is Animal Taming. And this is both to get yourself just a mounted horse right away so you can move around faster, and then of course to also get you an Ostard. Real quick, the banks in this game are the safest place to keep your items. To use them, simply go up and say bank. It will open up your bank box and you can put whatever you want in there. Now the default move speed in this game is a little slow, so I recommend heading down southeast of the bank. You'll find a pen there where you can actually tame your own horse if you've spent just that 300-ish gold into animal taming. Once you have your horse, you can explore the island of Aklo if you want, but there are no Ostards to tame here, so we're actually going to need to leave the island, and you will need to give up your young status if you have that. Don't worry about that, you can get your young status back at any time. Use the Moon Gate just east of the bank to travel to Moonglow. From there, you're going to want to head north to the town of Moonglow, where there is a series of teleporters. You'll see the path I take here up through this maze. This is essentially just getting you to the northeast side of Moonglow Island, where there is a maid shop. Once you're there, run to the back where there is a gray circle. Stand on it or near it and say the word Risu. This gets you from Moonglow to Papua. To get back, you'll actually need to say the word Residu. Weird, but I'm putting them up here for the spelling. Anyways, this is just a teleporter that gets you between the outer world and the world that is known as the Lost Lands, teleporting you to the town of Papua. Run northwest, up past the bank, and then a little further northwest you will find some open areas, some paths. Just in that whole general spot, start searching around and you should find a Forest Ostard, maybe even two of them. Without having trained animal lore, you're going to fail quite a few times before you successfully tame one. Just wait. Once your animal lore reaches up past 10 or so, you should finally succeed at taming one. Once you have your Ostard, head back to Papua and basically just return to Moonglow the way you came. Remember, say Residu to get back, then just run out, use the teleporters, they're much faster. I stabled a second Ostard I tamed. It's not a bad idea to get one or more backups because you're never sure if these are going to live or die right away, and it takes 24 hours to bond them. Pet bonding on this server just means that when your pet dies, that it will have a ghost that you can resurrect using higher level veterinary and animal lore, but I'll go over that more later in the video. You may be wondering what I'm doing right here, gathering flax. You'll also need to gather cotton and use your dagger on sheep to gather wool, because the one thing that's a big issue for all new players who go for a Dexter style is having enough bandages. And so you can take those 3 materials to a tailor shop and make them into cloth and then into bandages. A quick side note, you may see me targeting things that all of a sudden their names pop up on the screen. I'm doing that by holding Control Shift. It will allow you to see some things that you can't normally see, or just target animals or certain objects a whole lot easier, because there are some very small objects in this game. Another side note, if you're gathering cotton or flax or whatever, you may want to enable Scavenger. It is a useful agent within Razor that simply picks up items for you, saving you a whole lot of clicking time. Anyways, once you have enough material of any kind, such as cotton or wool, head over to the tailor shop in Oklo. I'm not going to spend you a lot of time showing you this. It's rather uneventful. I highly recommend using Razor to do a lot of this clicking for you. Basically, any of your raw materials you just put on the spinning wheel, and then all of your thread or yarn you put on the loom. It'll come into bolts that go straight into your backpack. You just cut those. It'll become cloth, cut it again, and it's bandages. Done and done. Now that you have some bandages and you have an Ostard, you are ready to go out and do some Ossytank fighting. As a young player, the monsters will still attack your Ostard, so it's going to be difficult to go into a large group and just take on single monsters at a time. You'll probably have to lure something away. You can fight small monsters like this as long as you want. You can even max out all of your combat skills doing individual targets like this, but that's going to take a very long time, and it's not going to get you gold very quickly. Most players go the route of doing at least some macroing to get their skills up to 80 or 90s. Sometimes they even macro them all the way to 100 before they even go out and do combat. So I'm going to show you a little bit about macroing some of your skills and also your stats, because that is very important when you're starting out. As a Dex or Warrior type, the 2 stats that are going to be most important to you are Strength and Dexterity. If you want to use some Magery, you will need to take some Intelligence. Most of my characters only have 25 Intelligence though. Anyways, to get Strength, one of the best ways is herding. Purchase a Shepherd's Crook from any stable NPC. Once you have that, equip it and double-click it. Double-click the animal you want to herd, select a random location near you, and it should gain you skill in herding. This will get you a lot of strength stat points, and if you're using Razor like I am here, it's a great one to leave running while you're AFK. You can just come back every half hour to every hour and check on it, make sure your character is still gaining skill and gaining stats in it. And then once you have enough skill, somewhere around 30 to 40 probably. Moving along, another great skill to learn for raising all of your stats is camping, and this is one of the most popular ones, but also difficult to do as an AFK macro. Typically people might run a macro just to use daggers on trees to gather kindling really fast, but then you also have to run another macro to light all of that kindling, and you can do Razor for both of those. Again, you're just using these skills to gain some quick stats. You're only going to raise them to 30 to 40 because you will end up dropping them later. There's really no point in GMing these skills. The last one of these I'm going to show you is Snooping. It's an excellent skill for gaining dexterity. Look around Oklo where you started for a NPC named Bard or Beggar. Say hire next to them and they should give you a small gold amount that they will work for. Drop that onto them and then they will follow you and fight for you. And more importantly, they won't turn you gray when you snoop their backpack and gain skill off of it. This is another skill that is great to macro AFK because Razor can run a simple loop macro and just continually snoop their backpack for hours on end if you want. You can GM snooping if you're going for a thief, but that's not what this build is about. Getting it up to 30 or 40 again is the ideal way to do it. Just gain that dexterity. You will drop the skill later most likely. You can see that I've actually combined snooping and camping by lighting kindling and snooping all in the same macro. You can macro snooping and herding in the similar way. There's a bit of a learning curve with Razor, but once you understand how to set up macros with it, the power behind it is amazing. Training your stats is all good and it will help you in combat, but you may also want to train your veterinary and healing for this build. Their rate of fail, around 30 to 50, is very high, and you can also not cure poison on either yourself or your animal using healing and veterinary with such low skill. So I'm going to show you a technique here you can use to raise both of them. It's a little difficult at first because your skill is actually going to be so low to begin with that your mercenary or the animal it's attacking might kill each other before you even get a successful heal off. So it's difficult to AFK macro this one at first. Once you get your healing and veterinary skill up a little, you can actually GM it using this method. The risk of doing it out in the field like this is that you have to bring a huge stack of bandages with you to do it AFK for a while, and some thief might come by or someone might come by and kill you, take all your bandages. That does happen. A less risky method that you can see here is standing near a bank, using it to restock your bandages, which you have to do through a razor agent, which is a bit more sophisticated of a macro, but if you can get it down, it just restocks your bandages to what I'm doing is 4 here. So if I were to die or a thief were to come up, they would never be able to steal more than a couple bandages from me at a time. Someone could also run by and kill the bull I'm training on there, and it would just simply, I'd stop gaining skill because there would be nothing left to heal. The absolute safest way to train veterinary and healing, of course, is to get access to a house. There is new player housing in Oklo that you can get access to if you're on the forums, which is another great reason to go there. The community in general on the server can be quite helpful. Back to the Ossytank build for pet bonding, and Ostard will eat any fruit or vegetable. You will need to feed them 1 to start with, and then stable them for 24 hours. Basically, when you first start out, they're going to say you should try feeding them, and then after you feed them, it will say spend more time. All you have to do is stable them for 24 hours, and that is real time. So you can stable them and come back the same time the next day or something, and then it will say they are ready to bond. You feed them again, and the Ostard will be bonded, and when it dies, you will have a ghost that you can resurrect so that you don't have to go out and keep taming new ones, which is very useful. On to the next thing, which is showing you how to leave the island of Oklo without having to run everywhere like crazy. Head over to the mage shop where you can purchase some recall runes. Once you have those, you will need to invest into some mark scrolls and recall scrolls. These are found at player vendors typically. They're a little pricey usually, but well worth it. They come in packs of 10 most of the time. Once you have all of those items, you're actually going to want to mark a location near the bank so you can quickly return to it using the recall scrolls. And after you have that rune marked, that is something you can just keep on you, and then you go to a nearby rune library, which is a player-made set of rune books. You can recall off of them using reagents or by dropping a single recall scroll onto them, which is what I'm doing here because my magery is a little low. But 50 magery is going to be enough to cast mark without fizzling a few times, and if it's your first character, you're probably going to want to mark quite a few locations like I'm doing here. Don't carry around too many recall runes at once. People will come by, PKs, thieves, steal stuff from you, and if you have all of the marked recall runes on you, it's really just a great way to lose everything all at once. So keep the 1 recall rune for the bank and then the 1 to your target location, unless you're just using the player-made rune libraries to get to your destination every time. So what I'm doing here is running through a dungeon, getting to a specific location. I'm just doing this to show you that the Ossytank can take on some very difficult monsters pretty early on. I don't recommend trying this when your character has only been in game for 2 hours or so. I tend to make the Ossytank build look a little bit easier than it is, but that's because I've been doing it for over 4 years. Getting used to the placement can take a little bit of time, so let's talk about that. If you're attacking from the north, south, east, or west, you are going to draw the monster's aggro onto you, meaning you're just going to be the one targeted first. And then if you target from the diagonal positions, you will actually be secondary target. So your Ostard will always be targeted as long as they're in one of the main directional positions. This fight does take a while, so I'm going to skip ahead to the end. when the monster does start running from you, it can be pretty difficult to keep its aggro or focus on your Ostard, because the positioning will change up and you'll likely get hit like I've been hit. So just be careful you don't get accidentally killed by something that hits you very quickly or very hard. The Ossytank is there to die for you, so you don't die in the middle of a dungeon like this and then have to run as a ghost all the way out to get resurrected and then have to ask for help or just have a really hard time trying to get your corpse back. That is a good part about this build. When your Ossytank dies, you can usually just escape, still have all your bandages and everything with you, and then you can come back and resurrect your Ossytank later if they have been bonded. However, resurrecting your Ostard does take over 80 veterinary and animal lore, which this character is far from. They don't even have enough veterinary to cure the poison that has been plaguing them here. I'm in a bit of a situation, so I'm just gonna call the Ostard off, and as soon as the poison is off of them, you can remount the Ostard and get the heck out of there. With that, you should know everything you need to get started with an Ossytank style. I'm not going to show you what an endgame Ossytank build looks like, because playing with your skills and stats and all that stuff and just having unlimited freedom to do whatever you want is all part of what makes this game so amazing. So I hope you enjoyed this getting started video for Ultima Online Renaissance Ossytank style.